Welcome to Empowering You with Cynthia Fontaine, where your transformation begins. This isn't just a show, it's your invitation to unlock personal power and trust your inner wisdom. Each episode, I'll guide you to release what holds you back and reconnect with the truth already inside you. Because when you align with your intuition, everything changes. You didn't find this by accident. You're ready. Let's begin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Empowering You with me, Cynthia Fontaine. I'm so glad that you found me, whether this is your first time seeing the show or you're a repeat watcher. Thank you so much for being here. I want to give a shout out to some of my fans who send me messages that say how much they love the show and enjoy it. I'm so happy that you're getting value out of it. I love the messages, so keep them coming, and I do respond. Also, check out to other shows on this station, because there are a lot of really great shows that you'll find will be of interest to you, and it gets you away from the regular everyday things that are on TV. Remember, also, you can find us on YouTube, just Google YouTube, Cynthia Fontaine, Empowering You. I'll come up, but then also the other shows will come up as well. We love your support, so follow this channel and give us a great review. All right, so now we're going to start the show. So you might notice I'm wearing a little green today. Green is not always a color that I would normally wear, but I'm very conscious that yesterday, the day before taping the show, was Earth Day. And I just happened to find this top a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, it's different for me, not the normal. And I thought, well, let me try it out and see how I like it. I think it's pretty okay. But for me, it reminds me of the earth and Mother Earth and the environment and nature all around us. Because without the earth, without Mother Nature, without our planet, we couldn't survive without all the bounty that she gives us. And we have to take care of the planet, right? It's like without the bees, there'll be no food. And so these are things that we have to think about. And I know we have a lot of things to think about right now. And some of you may start to be going a little comatose, we'll say, because of all the information overload of everything that's been in the news, because it's been going on really, for over a year now, with all these dramatic sweeping changes that are being placed in front of us, many of which you may not even be aware of. So in order not to withdraw and retract and stay engaged, it's okay to take a break, but come back. I know so many people, really just want to stick their head in the sand and totally ignore what's going on. And for some people, for your nervous system, to preserve it for your own sovereignty, it's necessary. And for those of you who feel that that is you can still be helping in your own way, right? You can be helping by taking care of the earth and planting a garden. You can be helping by meditating, by sending out good energy, by praying. Those are some things that you can do when it's too much for you to be in what's going on around the world. Now, we just had this amazing space trip, right, to the moon, the Artemis rocket, and we got some incredible pictures of the Earth back from the spaceship. If you haven't seen them, go find them and look at them. And one thing that one of the astronauts noted, I don't remember which one, was that the Earth is so beautiful and there are no boundaries. There's no map drawn. There's no lines that divide us in the United States into 50 states, or Europe into the European countries, or, that divide the globe the way we have divided as humans. And that really got me to thinking about the show today and being Earth Day, and then the pictures from the spaceship, from the rocket. And to think about, how did we get where we are? Now, if you watched, I think it was the last show, might have been the show before, I've lost track now, where I talked about the journey of from going the matriarchy, from the age of the goddess into the patriarchal age, and now we're shifting back out of that patriarchal age and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And Aquarius is quirky, it's new things, it's revelation, it's technology. We're going to see massive, huge advances in technology over the next coming years, especially the next 10 years. And how do we get there? How do we do that? So we got here sort of as a progression in how power moved from the age of the goddess, where there was peace and harmony and there were no weapons. And then when the first weapons were created, and then we moved into men being in power. And look, I'm not saying that every man is a warrior that's going to be out there raging war, but typically men are the ones that we see in society who are the aggressors. And so that being said, now we're shifting out of that period and into the age of the future, right? And so while that shift is happening, we're going to see bigger events so that those who are in control and in power now want to stay in control and in power. And so how do they do that? They make things bigger and more dramatic, which makes it more difficult for you and I every day. As the astronaut said, there are no borders. When it comes to our present daily lives, those no borders are highly important. Because when you think about the food that you eat, right? Now, your grandparents maybe had a big garden, and that's where, or then maybe they had a pig or a cow in the backyard, some chickens, and that's where their food, the most of their food came from. Or maybe they bartered with the neighbors. I have a pig, you have this, right? So your grandparents maybe lived in that way. Maybe there was a little general store, but there was no Target or Walmart or, these big, or Uber, or you can just, I can go to Whole Foods and just go, deliver my food, right? There was none of that. And even that is relatively new, where you can get food delivered to your door, whether it's a meal or whether it's your whole grocery order. But if you think about the start now of where that food comes from, you didn't produce it. The seeds have to be harvested from the plants that they came from to start with. They have to be stored, and then those seeds have to be planted, and those fields have to be nurtured, and there's equipment that runs it, and people that run the equipment, and there's fertilizers, and then there's harvest time, and people need to harvest the food. And then how many people are already involved in this? And we're already just at the harvesting of the food. Right? Then the food has to go from harvest to distribution. It has to go to packaging, has to go on trucks or cargo ships, or depending on where in the world it is. And then it has to get to the supply houses. Then the supply houses distribute it to the supermarkets or the stores that it's going to. And then somebody has to unload the trucks and put it on the shelves. And then somebody has to clean the store. Somebody has to, make sure things are in order. And then there's a cashier. Even if you're doing the self-checkout, there's always a cashier there to help, because there's often problems when you're doing the self-checkout. So think about how many people that just involved, right? Now think about, do you eat rice? Where does that rice come from? Well, most of the rice comes from outside of the country, not from in the United States. So now think of the people in the countries that are growing and harvesting the rice for you to eat. Okay? Think about the cell phone in your hand, or the TV or computer that you're watching this on. That started as cobalt in the ground. It started as minerals in South Africa, where people are in the mines. They're being paid $2 an hour, or some cases $2 a day if it's child labor. And those minerals have to be harvested, and then they have to be cleaned. And the people that are cleaning those minerals are toxic. And yet they're doing this, and maybe they make $3 or $4 an hour. And then it goes from the cleaning process to the next step and the next step and the next step, until finally it becomes a phone. And whether you're Android or Apple, whichever, you go online, you order it, or you go to the store and you get the phone in your hand. But think about all the people who made it possible, who made that phone, that mined the minerals, that put those phones together. Even if technology or a robot did it, there's still someone there who has to supervise, right? There's always a human in the loop. And then you think about who's in the warehouse packing and shipping, or if you went to the store and bought it, they were packed and shipped there, and then you have salespeople at the store. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because in this very fragile place in history where we're at this day, and this can go back even a few years, because if we look at the war in Ukraine, things were already fragile on that side of the world, and now they're even more fragile with things that are going on with the war in Iran and all the bombing and everything over there. Now, I like to make these evergreen so they can apply anytime, but I also feel like it's relevant that we have to talk about things that are happening in the present time and space as well. Because I pulled two cards, and the cards for this show is Between Worlds and To Be Fair. So we haven't quite left the old world yet, and we're not quite in the new world yet. And so it's a balance, and it's about fairness. And we, as a human beings and human population, many of us have lost our hearts. We've lost how to be in relationships. When we look generations back, whole families lived together often. My former husband, for example, his family had a 3-tenement house in the city, and the grandmother lived on the first floor, and his dad and mother lived on the second floor, and the kids split between the second and third floor because there were 8 kids. So the whole family took the whole 3-tenement house. And even I lived with my grandparents a couple of times when I was growing up as well. I also lived with my parents, but I lived with my grandparents. But it takes a village. Now we're all in our little silos, right? We're all in these big houses. You've got 2 people, or maybe you've got 1 kid and a dog, or maybe you have a couple of kids. So we're in these big houses, families all over the place. Even to get together, it's usually a wedding or a funeral that brings everybody together, not Sunday dinner or everybody gathering for Easter, Christmas, 4th of July, whatever holiday. Some people can make it now, some people can't. But 40 years ago, 50 years ago, most people were still close by their families, and everybody gathered. Everybody helped each other, right? When my aunt Bunny had bought a house, and she didn't like the stairs were coming down to the front door, and she didn't like that. So she wanted to flip the stairs to the other direction. So the whole family came out. My grandfather, my uncles, my dad was there. Of course, my aunt's husband, Bill, was there. And the kids are there, the wives are there, everybody's there. And the kids are running around, the wives are doing food or whatever they were doing, and the guys are turning the stairs around. And it got done. Now, that's impossible. We don't have big families like we used to. And people don't have the skills because now we have people that are into other skill sets like technology and computers and so forth. And but that was the heart, right, of the family. Even if everybody didn't get along, everybody still came together and you sorted it out despite if you had differences. So where we are now is we've lost that continuity. We've lost that connection. We've lost the reciprocity between people, between Mother Earth, right? You give and take and you give and take and you give and take. Now it's take, 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 take. And so when that happens, then there's an imbalance. Then there's power-hungry people, right? And we can see it but with the imbalance with the amount of millionaires and billionaires there are in the world. While their pockets are filling up, and then ordinary, everyday people, their pockets are getting emptier and emptier. And, you know, you might be thinking, because if you're watching this show and you're in the States, if you're watching it on the internet, of course, you're watching it in the States if you're watching it on TV because the show is local. But if you're watching it on YouTube, you know, this may or may not apply because you may be in Europe, because I do have followers in Europe. But for those who are on this side of the globe, we're not experiencing war firsthand. We haven't experienced war on these lands in a very long time. And so it's easy to believe that, well, it doesn't really affect us. Okay, I'm paying a little bit more for gas. Oh, the price of oil has gone up. Oh, I just noticed that, the price of batteries and razors and all these other things now are starting to go up. We'll also start seeing they'll reduce the sizes. Do you remember when coffee, before we had Keurigs, coffee, you bought it in a bag or you bought it in a container, right, was 16 ounces. You got a pound of coffee. So what did they do when they wanted to raise the price? Well, they thought, people aren't going to like the price raise. So what did they do? They cut the size. You were no longer getting a pound. Now, you're only getting 14 ounces. And then it was 12 ounces. And now sometimes you see 10 ounces. And people tolerated it. And so these things are rolled out in a way that then when it's rolled out slowly, we'll tolerate the changes. And we're seeing that, or we will start to see it more. In Rhode Island, we haven't seen so much of it yet, but we've seen this where they're doing things in test states, where they've rolled out it will go to the airports, where now you have ICE in the airports, and first they're supposed to be there to help TSA. Well, okay, whatever, I'm not going to go into that. But now they've decided, they're going to stay in the airports. Why? To get you used to seeing them, because then next you'll start seeing them in the streets. But I don't want to focus on that today. What I want to focus on is, how do we roll this around? How do we turn it around? How do we go from where we are and the path that we're headed down to the path where most people want to go? And that path is a path of peace. It's a path of harmony. And how do we do that? It starts within. It starts with you. It starts with myself. But it starts with each one of us as an individual. So let's do something right now to get really grounded. If you're driving the car and you're listening to this or whatever, of course, don't do it. Come back to it. But most of you, if you're seeing me right now, you're probably in a safe place to be able to do this. Okay, so you're going to stand tall if you're able to stand. If you're not, that's okay. Sit and feel your feet firmly on the ground. Now, I want you to take a deep breath in, filling up your belly first, and then a big exhale out, and shake it off. Okay. Just shake it off. And again, if you're in the chair, that's okay. Now, I want you to, again, take your stance, stand tall, or plant your feet if you're on the chair. And now I want you to stomp your feet, right? Stomp your feet. Feel them get heavy on the ground. Stomp them, right? Feel yourself get really grounded, like your feet are now attached to the floor beneath you. Okay, now come to center. And just let everything go down through your legs. Any stress you're feeling, any anxiety, anything that's coming up while you've been listening or watching to me, or just in general in your life. Allow it to flow through you, because now you're grounded. Now you're centered. When we get off center, right, then we get, sometimes you get frantic. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? You run around like Chicken Little, right? The sky is falling, the sky is falling. When it may seem like it is, because for people who are experiencing bombs dropping on them, the sky is falling in a sense. And so we on the other side need to somehow start to bring into balance what we want to see. Okay, and again, it's not ignoring what's going on, but it's focusing on what are we going to create? What is the life that we want to see when all this chaos stops? Because it will stop. Now, I had an interesting thing where I had a client come to me recently who said, oh my God, I've been watching these videos on Instagram where people are saying, psychics, where they're saying they can't see beyond 2027 and they think the world is going to end. Oh, stop right there. Stop right there. Right? What it is they can't see beyond because it's not formed yet. Because we, in co-creation with spirit, can change and shape the reality and the destiny in our future. Right? So what future do you want to focus on? What do you want to see? How do you want to feel? Once you get that, then how are you going to get there? The only way to get there is to clean up your stuff. What do I mean by that? Clean up the wounded stuff. If you've seen me before, you've heard me say this. I'll give you a quick example because I only got 6 minutes left here. Recently, I adopted a dog, and it came out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't looking for it, but this little cutie pie needed a home, and I didn't realize how much I needed her. And so she came into my life about 3 weeks ago, and my son's dad often will take his daughter's dog. She lives close by, and he'll take the dog and keep him for a week or longer, and then he, bribes the daughter or like holds the dog hostage. Well, now he thinks he's going to do that with my dog, and I said that's not going to happen. But what I realized is the reason behind it for me is because when I was divorced, I went through this huge thing with my ex-husband with custody of the kids. And I realized now my kids are 41 and 33. So that was a long time ago. I got divorced when my daughter was 5. And yet that old wound is surfacing. So it's interesting, isn't it? So even if you think, oh, I've done all that work, I've done the transformation, I've been to classes, I've done the weekends, guess what? The work is never really done. There's always things that you can clean up. But you can't do it alone. You have to do it in relationship with another, whether it's with a teacher, with a mentor, with somebody like me, with a counselor, a therapist. You have to do it with somebody else, which brings me to the point of all of what I'm talking about today, is that how we solve the chaos that we're seeing in the world is by finding our hearts again, by coming into relationship with others, by listening to actually hear what the other person is saying, not listen to respond like most of us do, but listen to really hear what they're saying. You don't have to agree with it, but you can listen and take it in and still have empathy for the person, in a sense. That's the only way we're going to win. It's the only way we come out of this in a way that comes to a world that we really want to live in. So the path is swayed one direction to a direction that I particularly don't want to see, because that's the energy of the majority. And we're seeing the worst of the worst come out now. But right before a huge shift or transformation, the worst of the worst of the worst has to come to the surface. And that's where we're at. So expect to see more of the worst, knowing that there's a purpose and a reason for it. And that on the other side of that, as it comes up like a new volcano coming out of the ocean, right? Underneath that, the real power lies in the heart. In your heart and in my heart and in the heart of others. And when we can put down the borders, when we can put down the understanding that that we're all different because we live in this area or that area, and somehow you're bad. When we can put that down and say we have to work together, because without that, you wouldn't have the bread on your table, you wouldn't have the cell phone in your hand, you wouldn't have the car that you drive. The very people that we are being told to hate are the very people that put those things in your hand, under your roof, the car under your butt, those same very people. So think about that. We have to pave a new way forward. And to see beyond 2027, we have to start deciding what we want that to look like and how we want to feel. That's the most important thing. How do we want to feel? So whether within your birth family or your chosen family, now is the time to find your heart, heal the wounded parts of yourself, ask to be surprised. I didn't expect, when I asked to be surprised, to have this come up 40 years later, or 30-some years later, about the custody thing and how I have a wound from that still. So I promise you, do the work. Do the work, and we will get there together. We will get to the place that we've all heard and been promised, this beautiful place where we live together in peace and harmony. So with that, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And again, thank you to those who comment and send me messages. Keep them coming. I love you. Be blessed.